welcome to the latest installment of the Studio Build Diary. The good news is the carpet is down. Most of the painting is done. It came out more yellow than I thought it would, but that's fine. I'll live with it. There's gonna be so much acoustic treatment and tapestry and stuff over here. It won't even matter. So anyway, the carpet went down finally, but hold on, let me spin this around and show you what's going on. So here we are with the new carpet. It feels really nice. New carpet. It feels really good. And so I've just set up some things to start testing, and you'll notice these are not ATCs. These are actually Event 2020 BAS original models. I'm going to start doing some testing with them, and while they're not even close to identical from the ATCs, they still put out a decent amount of low end, decent amount of high end. So I'll actually be able to do a lot of testing, moving things around, trying to find the best listening position with these, because again, the low end, and how it responds in the room will be kind of similar. I'm just setting some things up and I'm going to start experimenting. So based on just sort of traditional theory and guidance from the manufacturer, the ATC speakers should be about 2 meters out from the wall. And also with traditional wisdom, the listening position should be about 38% into the room. Again, these are general guidelines for traditional rooms. This obviously is not a traditional room. So I'm going to start in these ballparks. And again, all those things that you read about online or in books are guidelines, and you never know exactly what's going to happen until you get into your room and start working on some stuff. But my hope is, I really hope I can actually move the speakers farther back towards that front wall, allowing me to move the whole mix position up a little bit farther. I think that'll just feel a little bit more comfortable, but it also frees up more room over here just for other things, everything from kind of lounging things to places to put keyboards and guitars. And if I've got, a whole band in here recording, it's going to be nice to have that extra flexible space. And also, it's going to give me a lot more flexibility in terms of where I put my racks and various acoustic treatments. So I'm going to start shooting the room, and I'm going to try and take you on as much of the journey as I can. I'd love to do it all in real time, but I don't think that would be realistic unless you want a nice 7-hour video of me running test tones and stuff. So I'm going to shoot the room first time in just a couple minutes. And yeah, I know I can already hear there's going to be a little bit of weirdness, probably in the 200, 400 range. Just I can hear that talking and playing music. But we're going to shoot the room. I'm going to move some different positions. And I think best case scenario might be for me to sort of, save some of these results and kind of walk you through them and share the results and walk you through the decision-making process as I try and get this room sounding great, and just like every studio, manage all the sort of cool things and compromises you need to get a room rocking. All right, let's dig into it. So coming to you live from my still under renovation kitchen and dining room, we're gonna get into some super geeky stuff now. So I spent some time analyzing the room completely empty except for the speakers, the Event 2020 BSs, which are my temporary speakers, the stands, computer, and carpeting on the floor. Everything else completely empty, and wanted to go in and actually do some testing raw, make some decisions about speaker placement and listening position just based on the room itself before we start to put in other variables like acoustic treatment, equipment, and of course when the truck gets here, put the ATCs up and test again. But I got some really useful information, and I'm mostly pretty happy about it. So here was my first test, and take a look at this. Oh my God, that's so terrible. It's a mess. And wow, that's a great room you've got. So obviously all I'm doing is changing the scale, but that's really important when you're trying to analyze stuff, whether it's a room's frequency response or the frequency response of a microphone or a speaker, anything. So be careful about that. So if you see something that looks terrible, it might actually just be that you're closely inspecting something that's all right. Real quick, I'll show you one other thing that also happens is there's something called smoothing. which you can take that. So what this is showing you here is exactly what I measured, but you can actually start to smooth this out. And wow, that's much better. Wow, that's a great room. So it's not, obviously. So the only reason for showing that is to show that sometimes dodgy people trying to mislead you about the frequency response of a room or a pro audio product or something might actually show you smooth graphs to make things look better than they are. But we don't want to do that. We want the bright light, all the good, the bad, and the ugly about the room, so we can make some great decisions about placement and acoustic treatments and mixing and mastering decisions. So this was my first shot. I just put up the speakers. It's about 6 feet apart, 6 feet from my listening position, equilateral triangle, and shot it. And I think I was about 3.5 feet from the front wall. And as I mentioned before, I want to, get things close to the front wall if I can, because that gives me more options on how to use the space. But I'm not going to do that if it's not the best case scenario. So here is the 6 feet equilateral triangle, and then here's another one where I went to 7 foot by 7 foot by 7 foot. Pretty significant change right there. So again, if you haven't kind of spent time looking at these graphs, our perfect world is a straight line going across here. That doesn't happen in the real world. Even anechoic chambers are going to show some kind of variation. But we can see just me moving things a little bit radically changed this. So green here, and the green, it actually, made two things worse here. It maybe improved one, but still not great. So what I did next was I moved so this is, again, 7 by 7 by 7. And then I took it and I just pulled everything a little bit closer to the listening position. So now it's about 4.5 feet from the front wall and 6.5 foot triangle. So this blue one here, again, the blue one here is the new, much better. So it actually took these big dips here and made them much more even kind of with our medium. So it kind of fixed these three problems, made this a little bit worse. It dramatically improved here. So we had these big dips here, and that's replaced with one here. We have these huge dips here closer to the wall that are, almost corrected. And it fixed this one, but it added these two little problems. So I don't get too flustered about things once we start getting up above like 300 hertz, because they tend to be pretty easy to fix with broadband absorption. But I'm pretty happy with that. So this is where we are now with 6.5 foot equilateral triangle and about 4.5 feet from the wall. But ATC recommends 2 meters from the wall for their speakers. So I did want to try and again start moving them back a little bit to see if that improved things. So I moved them just back about 1/2 foot, 8 inches or so. And so this new green one is moved back. I was actually a little bit relieved by this, because it actually made things worse. So it made this little dip more dramatic. It made this a little dip more dramatic. It did help a little bit there, but also we added this new little dip here. So it actually created a fair amount of problems. So it did even out this one here. So it did fix a couple things, but I would say overall it was worse. And so the great news about this is I found with my testing, as I moved a little farther back, it actually didn't help things. We're going to test again with the actual ATCs. But so far, that was good news. So we went back here. So this green one is 5 feet from the wall. This is moving everything back just 6 inches to 4.5 feet. Look how different this is by moving our speakers and listening position just 6 inches, about that much for you metrics folks. Pretty significant. So all of a sudden, I'm actually pretty happy about this. Because this, if we kind of put our median here, 72, this little dip down here, that's 7 dB down, which for an untreated room is actually pretty good. The only big concerning thing here is, about 72. Yeah, this is like 18 dB down. So this is the one part. Luckily, it's narrow and not a huge thing, but at around 155 hertz, that's pretty significant. And again, we've got this big drop off, but that is the drop off of the speakers. So I'm pretty happy about this. And again, this thing I think too will easily get fixed with some broadband absorption. So I wanted to try a couple other things. And so one of the things I tried was if I moved my listening position, kept the speakers fixed about 4.5 feet from the wall, and but I moved my listening position 6 inches closer. So this new red one is 6 inches closer. No significant differences here. This got a little bit wonky. But it fixed this pretty significantly. So it actually, there is 6.62. Yeah, it improved this one 8 dB. It improved this little dip here, 59, about 5 dB. It did add this one here, which I'm not stoked about. But again, I think broadband absorption will fix that pretty easily. So I'm actually pretty happy about this. And of course, I'll fine tune it, but to me, that is actually a pretty good starting point for a completely empty, untreated room. And of course, more important than this SPL, the sound pressure level metric, is we're going to look at the waterfall plot. And that's going to show us how long these frequencies decay, which is actually more important. But I find that just using these preliminary SPL comparisons is a really good way to, get things in the ballpark. So this is 6 inches closer from what I thought was sort of my winner position, which I actually like this 6 inches closer. But what if I actually moved 18 inches closer, another foot? Like if 6 inches was better, what about 18 inches? Would that be even better? So this green one is even further forward. And no, it increased a problem there. It increased a problem there, added a new problem here, fixed this one, but nothing significant. And again, that's starting to get pushed out of that equilateral triangle where if I get too much closer, stereo might sound a little over exaggerated. But what if I go from 18 inches closer to 9 inches back? So this is about 2 feet of difference right here. When I add this, this is almost the same color, but so this new kind of more bluish one, it just shifted some problems. It actually fixed that and created some new problems. So yeah, not good. So I think what I'm looking at now is at my probably starting point is going to be this one. So I'll do that 6.5 foot triangle and I'm going to adjust it again when the ATCs come in. But maybe bringing my listening position a little bit closer than a full equilateral triangle. And actually that's not too crazy because a lot of the guidance too is almost an equilateral triangle joining behind your head is one of the bits of advice. So this is actually kind of falling into some common advice that you will see about setting up a room, but not too shabby. But here we go. So this one here, this 6.5 foot triangle, so that's about 2 meters and 4.5 feet from the wall. I think that's my favorite position so far and not really too shabby. But what's going to be even more important than this is pretty good and will get better, is the decay of some of these frequencies. So I can actually hear in the room a reverb across the spectrum, including a lot of lower end stuff. And that's going to be problematic without treatment. It's not going to be problematic once we fix it. But once we put some couches in and some comfy chairs and a ton of bass trapping that I'm going to do, I'm going to have a massive amount of bass trapping. A little bit would make it kind of okay, but I can't do kind of okay. I do high-end mastering work for people all around the world, and I need to make great decisions when I'm working on their material. So let's take a look at this waterfall plot. So this waterfall plot here is actually showing us, again, frequency across here and then length here. And the longer it is, the more those particular frequencies are resonating or decaying in the room. And we can see some pretty long ones. These big troughs here, but there are a few that are certainly much longer than we're going to be happy with. And I can hear these when I speak. And remember earlier before we started testing, I said I'm hearing some weird things between 200, 400. Look at this right here. So this is, that first one is 230, around 251. 297. So yeah, that's what I was hearing, because we had that long decay of those low mid frequencies, and the thing that's going to do is really mess up the clarity and detail in the low end and the low mids. And boy, would it be a shame to have an ATC rig and not be able to accurately hear the beautiful, clean, detailed low end. But I'm pretty optimistic about this, because I'm going to do, again, a ton of bass trapping in there, which I think we're going to see some dramatic improvements in these waterfall plots, and that should tighten up everything in a pretty dramatic way with some treatment. And this is going to be one of my challenges. I put carpet in the room. It's nice. It feels really good on my feet, walking around in socks. The reason I did that is a couple of reasons. One is New England. I want it to feel cozy in the wintertime when it gets cold. And also, I just like the way it feels. And for the last 7 years, I've been mixing and mastering in carpeted spaces. I'm kind of used to that. But with a space this large, with 780 square feet of carpeting, there's going to be a lot of attenuation already with the very high frequencies. So when I start looking at my bass trapping options, I want to be careful that I don't, when I start putting in broadband absorbers to deal with these bass problems, that I'm not overly reducing the high frequencies. And also too, is I'm going to put some broadband absorption in my very close first reflection zones, at least on the ceiling and maybe on the sides. So that's going to be a bit of a balancing act, but I also think too, and the room actually does sound a little boomy and honky right now, but once I start to tame in that low end, I think the room will naturally balance out. But that's one thing I'm going to be keeping an eye on, and which I might start working on fairly soon if the if the truck arrives. But that's it for now. I think I'm optimistic actually. I feared that this would be much worse, and as I might have already said, I do a lot of consulting in studios where I'm helping people put their studio together, and they have already put in a lot of treatment and stuff, and their results are way worse than this. And that's because they're in smaller spaces. There's a reason I went through the hassle and spent the money for a very large space, because a large, long space with a somewhat complex back wall is actually really helping me with a lot of the low end issues. And so now I'm just have to go in and massage them rather than go in and do triage on the low end. So that's it for now. I just wanted to share this step of it. And as soon as I've got the ATC set up, I'll do some testing again and share that. And unless life is too chaotic, I'm going to try and share my process and my journey of treating the room and trying to fix all of these things for us. All right, I hope this was fun, and I will see you the next time.